They say that salt is bad for you. They say that salt rises blood pressure. They say that salt is la la la. It's a myth. It was false. It was all food. There was a guy named William Kepner, some German dude, came into America in 1939, studied at Duke. He made the rice diet. The rice diet was 500 grams of sugar, rice, and fruit juice. That was the literal diet. It killed 25 people on the diet. Only 55% of people lowered their blood pressure on the diet. It was the weakest thing ever. It was not a clinically done trial. They just was like, yeah, that means salt is bad for you. And then Lewis Dahl and Robert Love bred sensitive salt rats, right? So they kept making more sensitive salt rats. They got the most sensitive salt rat and was feeding it 40 grams of salt, like the equivalent of a human taking 40 grams of salt, which is 10 times as much salt as a human would be able to take, folks. And they were like, oh, salt made this guy have hypertension. It was like, no, you bred a salt-sensitive rat and fed it an obscene amount of salt. Of course it's gonna fuck it up. And then they published their findings in the American Medical Association Journal or whatever in 1954, and they was like, yeah, salt is bad for you. They fed these salt-sensitive rats infant food, which had enough salt that was healthy for an infant, but not healthy for a salt-sensitive fucking rat. And then they were like, oh, infant food you're gonna kill your baby because of the salt. Then they lowered the salt in it, and then they're like, actually, but they didn't want to like go back on it. So then they're just like, salt raises high blood. We need salt really bad. Like, our kidneys need salt. And when there's not enough salt in the kidneys, we produce a lot of insulin so we can retain the salt. Insulin is a salt retainer, pretty much. But insulin is important because it turns glucose into energy. It allows our cells to convert glucose. It allows our cells to promote proteins and amino acids and convert lipids, right? But if our cells are insulin resistant because there's so much insulin in the body because we're trying to retain the little salt that we have, now we have break down any glucose, and we cannot break down any lipids, and we cannot break down any proteins. So what can you break down? Refined sugars. So now you're craving refined sugars, and your body doesn't want to lose salt, so it's not going to want to sweat, so it's not going to work out, it's not going to want to move. You might think you're lazy. It's like, all right, bigger. No, bro, your body's like, this is the only thing I can break down, and I cannot lose any more salt or I'm fucked. Like, your organs are working overtime because there's not enough salt in the body. Now you have working overtime organs. All of these fucking cells that are insulin is not a good combination, bro. So we need a lot of salt in our body, grams at least, and that has to be Celtic salt, Baja sea salt, or Redmond sea salt, not iodized salt, not pink Himalayan salt. But that whole salt was was a myth, bro. Salt in your body, a low salt diet is going to be insulin resistant. What happens when you are insulin resistant? Diabetes type 3 in the brain, dementia. Oh, bro, that's how you hydrate your cells. That's how you make sure your organs aren't working overtime. That's how you make sure you're not insulin resistant.